Hey everybody, welcome to the chord pairs. So today's chord pair is going to be A major 7 to D7. A major 7 and D7. Now, the idea behind these chords is that we want to have a hand shape that allows us to move from one chord to the next smoothly. Okay? So these two chords I chose have basically the same hand shape, and you'll see this even more in detail in the score that I actually have for you today, which I'm going to share on screen in just a moment. So before I start with the score and sharing the score for you and with you on this, the idea with the left hand is you want to start with your left hand. Don't worry about the right hand with strumming and all that sort of thing. We'll get into that a little further in. But you want to start with the left hand and just get the left hand to move from one chord to the next in one piece. The left hand should move in one unit. Think of that as a group of whoever, whatever, moving in one piece is what you're looking for. You don't want to add fingers into the chords. It kind of defeats the purpose of the chord switching, because a lot of what we do in guitar playing is we play things through the air. Okay, so we want to be able to move one hand shape over to the other hand shape. In this case, they're the same. So if you're thinking of shapes, you'll see in the chord diagrams it kind of looks like a triangle. So you can think of that type of visual as you move your hand through, and you'll see that again more cemented in the score. So, but for now, if I go to play this chord, I'm not going to hear anything, because I want to basically just place my hand on top of the strings, right? My A major 7 moving over to D7, okay? That's really the idea, is getting these two guys to move together in one piece, and then adding the first finger in, and vice versa with the other chord. Okay, so A major 7, D7, D7, A major 7. So getting that smoothness in movement requires a lot of slow playing, taking your time, and also relaxation, keeping the left hand relaxed so you can move the hand without feeling any tension building up in your hand, which is very typical if you're learning a new chord. And also you can do a thing where you can reassemble the chord after you dismantle it. So this is where the middle finger goes on A major 7. Here's where it goes for D7. Here's where the first finger is on A major 7. Here's where it is on D7. Here's where the ring finger is on A major 7. Here's where it is on D7. Okay? So that's the situation with the left hand. Relaxed, slow moving, everything moving in one piece. Okay, so now on to the score without further ado. But I want to spend a little time talking about that with you today. Here it is. Okay, so it's a little bit more blown up here, bigger score, and also we have our fretboard diagram, so you get to see which notes are highlighted from chord to chord, which is very handy. In fact, if I click on this, bam, you can see here we have an A, an E, a G sharp, C sharp, and an E. That's going to be your spelling for each of the chords here. In this case, the A major 7. That's how it's spelled out. You can see in the fretboard diagram the letters of the alphabet, which are very important to understanding how a chord is spelled. Okay, it's not about tablature all the time, like all the stuff on the bottom. Of course, you see it here, 0, 2, 1, 2, 0. If you just looked at that and saw that as your chord, I wouldn't know what that is. You know, I'd have to go in and plot it out like this. And then, of course, you run into the alphabet and the letters of the alphabet, which is part of what you hear in music. So we don't hear numbers going by when we hear a song. We hear notes, and notes are labeled by letters from the alphabet. A through G is the choices, okay? Or are the choices. So we got a G sharp here, and we got a C sharp in there. So if you're not used to what the note names are, over time you will get used to those, and you'll see it when I click on the chord diagram. Here they are. So underneath the diagram, we have the spelling of the chord. We got an A, we got a C sharp, we got an E, we got a G sharp. That's the spelling of A major 7. So if you know where the letters are on your fretboard, you can play that chord anywhere you want to. But for our purposes, if we're just starting out, the letters come after working with where the fingers go on the fretboard. Then you can associate letter names to what's under your fingers, or what the names of the open strings are, right? Open A string and your open E string. So that's something you can consider as well. The X is the string you avoid with the right hand. If you're a righty, the right hand holds the pick. We're not going to play that string, okay? If you're a lefty player, this whole diagram gets inverted over the other way, so that makes life easier for left-hand players. So there it is. Middle finger plays the second fret on the D string. We get an E there. First finger plays the first fret on the G third string, which is where G sharp is. And C sharp is the second fret on the B string. And if you've gone through the music alphabet on the guitar video series that I have here, these things are gone over with the sharp notes. Okay, I covered G sharp and C sharp on those videos. So here it is, A major 7. That's that chord. And you can see, if you're looking at these diagrams, they look identical, but the string groupings are different, therefore the letters are different. Here's our D7 chord. Open D string, the 6th string and the 5th string are both knocked out with the right hand. We're not going to play those. Open D on the 4th string, A, 3rd string, 2nd fret. 1st fret plays the C, and the F sharp plays on the E string, 2nd fret. So D, F sharp, A, and C are the notes that spell out D7. Okay, so that's the workings of how that all works out. The A major 7 and D7, those chords come from other keys. Again, I just chose random chords to pair together that have the same kind of hand shape to make life easier for working on the chords and getting them to switch smoothly, which is the aim of the Chord Pairs video series, to get into smooth chord changes with just 2 chords. All right, so we got everything here. We got our score. We got our fretboard diagram here that highlights the notes as you can see them being played through in the score. And there's certain things that are operational in the score. We have measures 2 and 3 repeating. First measure is a pickup measure. It gives you the click so you can play along at this tempo, 60 beats per minute. Okay, that's your tempo that we have. Sorry, get out of here. So that's what the chord note is at. All right, and this is a good place to start tempo-wise. If it feels too fast, you can always back it down to 50. You can go to 40, whatever tempo feels comfortable. Don't be afraid to slow it down. We want to keep things slow. We don't want to worry about playing things fast. Okay, measures 2 and 3 repeat. Onward to measure 4 through 7. Those 4 measures repeat. Okay, and you can see each measure has its own chord in it. It's only the 2 chords, right? Now the bottom, we'll get to that in just a second, but the strum patterns are different. All down strums for your quarter notes. Right hand literally moves down through the strings towards the floor. The pick is moving in that direction. And A major 7 in this measure is done as an 8th note grouping. So we have 2 things happening per beat here. And the way we count out the 8th notes, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and evenly spaced out. The right hand's going to reflect that feel of the count with down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, and you're going to hear this in the playback. Okay, so let me stop the share here. So for 8th notes, we have down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So for strum patterns, it's good to start with the right hand and isolate the right hand. Mute with your left hand so you don't hear any sounds. Lightly place the fingers on the strings. So you can work on your strum patterns just like you would work on your left hand for the chord switching. If you're having trouble with strum patterns, isolate the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. So every count, every chord note, we do something else within that. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 things inside 1. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the right hand's moving evenly through. We're not doing it uneven. We're going through an even motion. Everything's spaced out evenly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. Alternating. That's the idea of strumming. You could do one direction and make that your strum pattern. With that particular spot in the tune where we go to 8th notes, we're working on alternation. Okay, that's the idea. All right, so that's the situation with that when you get into measures 4 through 7. And lastly, we have these 3s above these groupings of notes. That is going to be an indication of an 8th note triplet. So these are 8th notes, just like these guys are 8th notes, but they're only grouped in 2s. So it's an even number, so the motion for the right hand is evenly spaced out. With triplets, it's an odd number, so it's got an odd strum pattern to it as well. It's alternating, but you can see that these particular groups right here don't look quite the same. There's alternation, but these 3 have a down, up, down. The next one after that, up, down, up. So that's a little bit strange, very odd. But then again, we have down, up, down on the third grouping, and an up, down, up on the last grouping. And that continues in the next bar. We have the same kind of idea, down, up, down, up, down, up. To count out your eighth note triplets, they're done in threes, 3 to the beat, evenly spaced out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's how that all comes together. If you want to think of a different way of feeling out the eighth note triplet, you could think of your berries, you know, strawberry, blueberry, raspberry, cranberry, whatever berry you want to throw in there, you can throw in, and you can use that as your counting method. Or you can go through the fast food restaurants, right? You do Burger King, McDonald's, White Castle, Arby's, whatever. I don't know. Arby's would just be eighth notes. Arby's, Arby's. And then by the time you're done playing this, you probably want to go out and get something to eat. So, but for eighth note triplets, you can think of, you know, whatever is a 3-syllable word that you can use. Microscope, telescope, kaleidoscope would be something different. But anyway, you get the idea. You want to find something that works for you, or you can just simply go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. So there it is. Those are your approaches to the score, and we haven't played through the score yet, so let's do that now. So 4 count to start you out, get the tempo set up, and then it's going to play through these 2 measures twice, these 4 measures twice, and the last 2 measures gone through twice. Here it is. Okay, and there it is right there. Let's see if I can actually go back to this part here and play this through, because the fretboard diagram was in the way. Let's hear it. Okay, so that's how that sort of works out. Same thing with the next measure. I'll let that play through. Okay, now again, if that feels too fast, you can move it down to a slower tempo. It's totally up to you how you want to approach that. Okay. So that is the deal with the score. All right, so that's how that works out. If I go back to the main view, if I get rid of the share, that last part, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and again, if that feels fast, don't be afraid to slow it down. I'm going to play for you now. So I have 1, 2, 3, A major 7. D7, A major 7, now the thing with this, with any of these types of rhythms like eighth notes, eighth note triplets, the thing that's interesting is when you do the switch between A major 7 and D7 in the triplet rhythm, even the eighth note rhythm, there's a lift that happens between the end of the count. So like if you're doing eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So the end of 4, whether it's the eighth note grouping or eighth note triplet grouping, 1 and 2 and 3 and so what happens in there is we do a lift, and on the part in the eighth note triplet, for instance, we have a lift 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. So the part of the eighth note triplet is where we lift the hand off and we move to the D7 chord, or D7 to A major 7. That moment allows you to lift off the chord and move to the next one, okay? So you don't have to account for every single eighth note, whether it's an eighth note triplet or an eighth note grouping. You can use that last eighth note to move your hand off of the chord, but still have the strum, which incidentally enough could be either an up strum or a down strum. In the eighth note grouping, it's the up strum that we can lift off of the last eighth note and then move to the next chord, okay? So you don't have to be on the beat, you know, for all the hands. So if you're doing something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it doesn't have to be that exact, you know. You can try for that, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but musically, to achieve that smoothness, we use that moment, and it depends on the tempo. If the tempo is really fast, you're not going to hear it, you know. It's very, very subtle. It's like almost like a muted type of thing, because we're still making the hand motion at the fast tempo, but we're not still holding the chord down on the last up or down strum, you know. We're using that up strum or down strum in the case of triplets to move to the next chord. So again, you have to keep everything accounted for on the fourth beat in particular, okay? It just depends. Like I'm using a full measure of one chord, but if say there's more than one chord per measure, there's moments within that where you can actually work and lift off. But for the purposes of our chart, moving off on the fourth count, either the and or the is where you lift off your left hand and move to the next chord, but the right hand's still doing its thing. But you might not hear any tones there, especially at slower speeds, okay? So that's another little tip that I want to mention. And that also aids in keeping your hand relaxed, because a lot of times when we get to beat 4 and we're getting ready to switch to the next chord, some tension might build up in your hand and go, oh, here comes that chord, oh, and then you start getting tight, then you can't make that change. So just think of that too. There's lots of little things to consider. So if you feel like you have to go back to a certain part of the video and go over something else, that's perfectly fine. But think of that as you're playing through, that you have some leniency in the movement part in what's happening with the right hand and the left hand as a result of where you switch, okay? So hopefully that helps you all out with everything. The next chord pairing is going to be the A7 chord moving to the D7 chord, so stay tuned for that one. And of course, if you like this video and you found it helpful, feel free to like. And if you want to subscribe, you're more than welcome to subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next video. I hope this helps you out. Feel free to leave comments underneath the video. If you have any questions, I can address them in the comments, or I could do a separate video and answer questions that way. All right, so have a great one, guys. Good luck with these two chords, and see you on the next video.